For centuries, the Galactic Council had dismissed humanity as an irrelevant, primitive species. Earth was a backwater planet, barely spacefaring, struggling with its own internal conflicts. While other civilizations had been traversing the stars for millennia, humans had only recently cracked the secret of faster-than-light travel. The Council saw them as nothing more than a curiosity, a species of reckless ambition but little real power. That perception changed in an instant. It began with a transmission. Not a distress call. Not a declaration of war. Just a simple, live broadcast that shook the foundations of the universe. The transmission originated from a Terran deep space relay, hijacking thousands of interstellar frequencies at once. It was a direct feed from Earth, an unedited, real-time event that left every species in stunned silence. At the heart of the Galactic Council, on the planet Xiphos Prime, the High Arbitrator of the Council, a towering insectoid named Velvar, stared at the screen in disbelief. Around him, ambassadors from 100 different species had gathered, each representing civilizations that had existed for thousands, some even millions, of years. And yet, none of them could comprehend what they were seeing. On the screen, a human stood alone in a massive chamber of metal and fire. He was strapped into a colossal machine, wires snaking into his body, his limbs trembling under forces that should have ripped him apart. The chamber was labeled, Project Singularity, Final Test. "Is this some form of execution?" whispered a reptilian envoy from the Xeric Dominion, his slitted eyes narrowing. "No," Velvar replied, antennae twitching. "It is something far worse." The human, his name, according to the broadcast, was Dr. Elias Carter, was speaking, his voice distorted by the immense energy surging through his body. "To those watching beyond our world, we are about to take the final step. The laws of physics have bound us for too long. Today, we break them." The chamber around him flared with light as an unholy force twisted reality itself. Space bent. Time wavered. Every instrument in every starship within 500 light-years blared with catastrophic warnings. The very fabric of existence screamed in protest as humanity did something no species had dared attempt before. They were rewriting the fundamental laws of the universe. A council member, an elder of the Kirin, a species that had mastered quantum manipulation, staggered back, his tendrils curling in horror. They're using a singularity as a power source? Another voice, belonging to an ambassador of the ancient Kryn race, croaked, "No civilization has ever survived such an experiment. Not one. This is madness." And yet, the humans did not stop. The experiment reached critical mass. Energy readings exceeded anything previously recorded in the known universe. The singularity at the heart of the machine collapsed, and then expanded. For the briefest moment, everything, every star, every planet, every ship, every being, felt a pull. It was as if reality itself was being rewritten around them. Then, silence. The screen flickered. The light from the machine dimmed. Dr. Elias Carter stood, panting, his body steaming, his eyes wide with something between triumph and terror. "It's done," he whispered. And then, he smiled. The transmission ended. The chamber of the Galactic Council remained deathly silent. Every species present, from the ancient warlords of the Cytheri to the hyper-intelligent scholars of the Velmari Ascendancy, sat frozen. They had all just witnessed something impossible. For eons, the most advanced civilizations of the galaxy had agreed upon one fundamental truth: certain laws of the universe could never be broken. Humanity had just shattered them. And in that moment, the Council realized a terrifying truth. Earth, this backwater planet, this so-called primitive species, had just changed the game. And the universe would never be the same again. The galaxy did not react with awe. It reacted with fear. Within hours of the transmission, the news spread like wildfire across every major civilization. Humans, those reckless, short-lived creatures, had just demonstrated an ability that should have been impossible. A power so immense, so uncontrollable, that even the oldest empires had never dared attempt it. Velvar, the High Arbitrator of the Galactic Council, did not sleep that night. His mind raced through every possible outcome, and each one led to catastrophe. He had seen civilizations rise and fall, watched empires crumble under their own ambition. But this was different. The humans hadn't just built a new weapon. They had rewritten the rules of reality itself. And that made them the single greatest threat the galaxy had ever seen. The Emergency Council meeting. The Grand Hall of the Galactic Council was in chaos. The room, an immense chamber floating above the gas giant Xiphos Prime, usually radiated an air of solemn authority. Today, however, it buzzed with frantic voices, fear gripping every representative present. They must be contained, hissed the Xeric Dominion's ambassador, slamming his clawed fist onto the table. If they can manipulate singularities, then what stops them from turning our worlds into fuel for their machines? The crystalline envoy of the Velmari ascendancy shimmered with unease. We must not act in haste. We do not yet understand the extent of their breakthrough. It could be unstable. Unstable? The warlord of the Sithari Empire, a towering figure clad in blackened armor, let out a deep, guttural laugh. Unstable is the least of our concerns. They defy the laws of the universe as we know it. They could be gods or demons, and you speak of patience? Veldar remained silent, watching the chaos unfold. This was exactly what he had feared. Panic. Desperation. The galaxy did not like uncertainty, and humanity had just shattered every certainty they had ever known. Finally, he spoke. War is not the answer. His voice, though calm, carried the weight of centuries. The room fell silent. Not yet. The Xeric envoy hissed in frustration. Then what do you propose? Veldar's mandibles twitched in contemplation. He had spent years studying humanity. Their unpredictability. Their relentless ambition. Their history of war and triumph. They did not respond well to threats. But they did respond to challenges. We will send an emissary to Earth, he declared. A delegation, under the guise of diplomacy. We will see this power firsthand. His multifaceted eyes glimmered. And we will determine if they can be controlled. The council murmured in uneasy agreement. None of them liked it. But none of them had a better alternative. For now, they would observe. And if necessary, they would strike. Earth's defiance. Back on Earth, humanity was already preparing for the inevitable. The transmission had not been an accident. The moment the Galactic Council had dismissed them as a minor species, humanity had known they would need to prove themselves. The demonstration of Project Singularity had been deliberate, a message to the universe. We are not weak. We are not primitive. We are ready. Dr. Elias Carter stood on a high platform, overlooking the heart of Earth's most advanced scientific facility. Around him, engineers and scientists worked tirelessly, refining the technology that had just shaken the universe. He knew what was coming. They'll be sending a delegation, said General Alex Rains, standing beside him. The old soldier's face was lined with years of experience, his gaze sharp. And when they do, they won't just be coming for a friendly chat. Carter smirked. Let them come. He gestured to the machinery below, where a new singularity reactor pulsed with raw power. We're just getting started. The universe had finally taken notice of Earth. And Earth was ready to stare right back. A fleet in Earth's sky. The night sky over Earth lit up with unnatural brilliance. Hundreds of ships, some sleek and silver, others vast and ominous, hung in orbit like silent gods watching from above. The delegation from the Galactic Council had arrived, not just as envoys, but as a warning. At the heart of the fleet was the Vorthan, a diplomatic dreadnought the size of a small moon, its surface bristling with weapons that had laid waste to entire planets in past wars. Surrounding it were vessels from a dozen different species, an overwhelming display of power meant to remind Earth of its place in the cosmic hierarchy. But Earth did not cower. Instead, a single message was transmitted from the planet's surface. Welcome to Earth. Please mind the gravity. A subtle reminder that even here, the universe's fundamental forces bent to humanity's will. The landing at Terra Prime. The delegation descended upon Terra Prime, a sprawling diplomatic complex built for the day humanity would speak to the stars as equals. Waiting for them on the landing platform was General Alex Rains, his military uniform crisp, his expression unreadable. Beside him stood Dr. Elias Carter, the man responsible for the experiment that had thrown the universe into turmoil. The alien representatives stepped forward. Veldar, the High Arbitrator, led the delegation. His towering insectoid form moved with deliberate precision, his multifaceted eyes scanning every detail of his surroundings. Behind him came the crystalline Velmari, the reptilian Zarek, and the armored warlord of the Scytheri Empire. The tension was palpable. Veldar spoke first, his voice an eerie mix of clicking tones and synthesized translation. "Humans," he said, "do you realize what you have done?" Dr. Carter smiled. "Yes." Veldar's mandibles twitched. He had expected arrogance, maybe even fear. But Carter's confidence was unsettling. "You have tampered with forces beyond your comprehension," the Velmari envoy said, his crystalline body humming with unease. "No civilization has survived such reckless ambition. We are here to ensure your survival, or your containment." General Rains folded his arms. "Containment?" His tone was sharp. "You came here expecting submission." The Scytheri warlord stepped forward, his black armor gleaming under Earth's sun. "You mistake our presence for diplomacy, human." His voice rumbled like distant thunder. "We do not negotiate with those who threaten the balance of the cosmos." Carter chuckled. "Threaten the balance?" "No, warlord. We are simply adjusting it." He gestured toward the sky, where a second sun-like object briefly flickered before vanishing. The alien stiffened. The impossible feat. Veldar's antennae twitched erratically. "That was a synthetic singularity," Carter interrupted. "Not just a weapon, not just an energy source. A controlled, stable manipulation of spacetime itself." He smiled, but there was steel in his voice. "We are no longer bound by the limitations you imposed upon yourselves." The delegation stood in stunned silence. What humanity had achieved was more than scientific progress, it was ascension. The Scytheri warlord's claws flexed. "Then you have already sealed your fate." Carter's smile widened. "Funny. We were thinking the same about you." From orbit, something changed. The human fleet, which had been eerily silent, suddenly became active. Stealth ships decloaked. Defense satellites powered up. And most terrifying of all, something vast and unseen moved in the fabric of space. Veldar's eyes widened. The humans had not just prepared for diplomacy. They had prepared for war. The standoff. For the first time in recorded galactic history, an advanced species was not bowing before the Council's authority. Earth had drawn a line. Above the planet, the Galactic Council's fleet remained locked in a silent, tense orbit. Thousands of warships, built over the course of millennia, stood against a seemingly unremarkable planetary defense force. By all calculations, humanity should have been outmatched. And yet, something wasn't right. Veldar stood aboard the Vorthan, his mandibles twitching in frustration. Every predictive model said Earth should be afraid, should be scrambling for negotiations or surrender. Instead, the humans had met them with a smirk, as if they had been expecting this. He turned toward his tactical officer. "Have our scans determined what they are hiding?" The officer, a pale-skinned, multi-eyed Velmari, looked deeply unsettled. "Sir, the readings make no sense." Veldar narrowed his gaze. "Explain." The officer hesitated, then brought up the data. "We detect ships, orbital defenses, and a planetary shield grid, but that's not what worries me." His voice trembled. "There are gravity distortions in the system, large enough to suggest the presence of additional singularities." Veldar's mind reeled. "You mean to say, they have more?" The officer swallowed. "Not just more, sir. They're moving." Humanity's true hand. Back on Earth, General Rains stood alongside Dr. Carter, watching the skies. The alien delegation had been allowed to leave Terra Prime, but they had not been given answers. Now, the moment of truth was approaching. "They're scared," Rains muttered. "They should be." Carter simply nodded. He knew what was coming next. From the depths of space, a hidden transmission flared across the system. One single word was sent from a secret human command center. "Activate." For an instant, nothing happened. Then, the universe itself seemed to shift. Space twisted. Reality flexed. And something massive emerged from behind the dark side of the moon. Project Titan. Veldar's breath caught in his throat as the Council fleet's sensors overloaded. A vessel, if it could even be called that, had just appeared on every display screen. It was unlike anything ever recorded in galactic history. It was not built, it was grown from the very fabric of spacetime itself. The TSS Titan, Earth's first Singularity-class warship, had arrived. Its hull shimmered with gravitational distortions. Its very presence warped light around it. Where its engines should have been, there were instead swirling black voids, microsingularities, controlled and stabilized. And then, it moved. Not with traditional propulsion, not with FTL drives. It simply was here, and then there, crossing distances in an instant, as though space itself had folded for its convenience. Veldar's mind barely registered the horror in his officers' voices. Their ship. It's breaking every law of physics we understand. We can't track its movement. What have they done? Veldar clenched his mandibles. The humans had built a god. Earth's message. Back on the surface, Carter received the confirmation he was waiting for. He turned to General Rains. "Shall we send them a message?" he asked, voice calm. Rains smirked. "Go ahead." Carter activated the planetary comms and broadcast a single statement to the entire Galactic Council fleet. "We are not prisoners of your reality. You can either accept that, or be left behind." The message was clear. Humanity had transcended. And the galaxy would have to decide, **** adapt, or perish, ****. Aboard the Vorthan, chaos erupted. Veldar's officers shouted over one another, struggling to make sense of the impossible. The human warship, the TSS Titan, moved without inertia, without propulsion. It defied every law of physics that had governed the galaxy since the dawn of time. The Sithari warlord slammed his gauntlet fist onto the armrest of his command chair. "This is an abomination. No species should wield such power." His voice was a deep, guttural snarl. "They must be destroyed now." The Zarek ambassador, his reptilian tongue flicking nervously, hissed in disagreement. "Destroy them? Are you blind? We don't even know how to fight them." Veldar watched it all unfold with cold precision. His species, the Xiphos, had survived for millennia through strategy, not brute force. And in this moment, he realized the undeniable truth. The humans had already won. Even if the Council destroyed Earth, it wouldn't matter. The Singularity technology was out. It was functional. If one Titan-class ship existed, there were more, or there would be soon. The humans had evolved past conventional war. And if the Council refused to accept this new reality, they would die fighting the past. The Council's ultimatum. A transmission flared from the Vorthan, broadcasting on all frequencies. Veldar's voice, steady despite the panic around him, echoed across the system. "Humans. You have forced us into a choice. If what you claim is true, then the balance of the galaxy is forever changed." Dr. Elias Carter and General Alex Rains stood before the live transmission, unwavering. Behind them, the TSS Titan loomed in the sky, a silent titan watching over its creators. Veldar's mandibles twitched as he continued. "The Galactic Council does not fear change, but it does not accept unchecked power. You will submit your technology for oversight, or the combined forces of the Council will be forced to neutralize your threat. Silence. Then Carter did something that sent a chill through every being watching. He laughed. It wasn't mocking. It wasn't cruel. It was the laugh of a man who already knew the ending of this story. And when he spoke, his words echoed across the stars. You don't understand, do you? Carter gestured toward the TSS Titan. We didn't build a weapon. We built freedom. He stepped forward, his gaze locking onto the Council's delegation. You think we'll hand over our discovery to a group of empires who have spent millennia keeping younger species under their thumb? No. Those days are over. Carter's smile faded, replaced by something colder. You can call us a threat. You can even try to fight us. He folded his arms. But you won't win. And deep down, you know it. The death of fear. Aboard the Vorthan, Veldar knew Carter was right. The Council's greatest weapon had always been fear. Fear of its fleets. Fear of its technology. Fear of breaking the laws of the universe. But humanity? They weren't afraid anymore. And that made them unstoppable. The choice. Veldar took a slow breath. He turned to his officers, then to the Sithari warlord, who was still bristling with rage. We have two options, Veldar said, his voice steady. We fight them and risk extinction. He turned back to the human delegation, his multifaceted eyes narrowing. Or we adapt. The warlord snarled. You mean surrender? Veldar's mandibles twitched. No, he exhaled. I mean evolution. The warlord scoffed. And what do you propose? Veldar turned back toward the human transmission and spoke words no one had expected. Earth. If you will not bow to the Council, then tell us. His voice lowered. Will you lead? Veldar's words sent a ripple through the galaxy. The Galactic Council had never asked another species to lead. It had ruled through might, diplomacy, and fear for thousands of years. Now, in the face of Earth's impossible technology, they had been forced to admit their weakness. Humanity had forced them to change, and that terrified the old empires more than any weapon ever could. In the control center of Terra Prime, General Alex Rains and Dr. Elias Carter exchanged glances. The Council had played their final hand, not with threats, but with desperation. Rains leaned forward. Lead? His voice carried the weight of a soldier who had fought too many wars. You spent centuries dictating the fate of every species under your rule. Now that we've proven you're not untouchable, you want us to take over? Veldar's mandibles twitched. We want to survive. The breaking of the old guard. Aboard the Vorthan, the Sithari warlord had heard enough. This is insanity, he roared, slamming his armored fist onto the table. We do not kneel before a species that was flinging metal slugs at each other a few centuries ago. We should burn their world and take what is ours. The Zarek ambassador coiled his serpentine body in discomfort. And how would you do that, warlord? Have you not understood anything? His yellow eyes flicked to the display of the TSS Titan, which hovered ominously in orbit. We cannot fight what we do not understand. The Sithari warlord bared his teeth. Then die as cowards. He turned sharply and stomped toward the exit, his black armor glinting under the dim lights of the war chamber. Before anyone could stop him, he sent a single, encoded transmission. To the Sithari fleet. Prepare for war. Earth's answer. Back on Earth, the moment had come. Dr. Carter took a deep breath, feeling the weight of history pressing down on him. Lead, he repeated. No. That's not what we want. Veldar's expression darkened. Then you refuse? Carter shook his head. Not refuse. Correct. He turned toward the giant screen displaying the Vorthan's bridge. The galaxy doesn't need a new master, Carter said, his voice firm. It needs a new way forward, no more stagnant empires. No more secretive councils hoarding knowledge. We don't want your throne. His next words sent a shockwave through the universe. We want to end the Galactic Council. Velvar's eyes widened. You would dismantle everything? Carter nodded. The old system is broken. We don't need rulers. We need equals. The betrayal. Before Velvar could respond, alarms flared aboard the Vorthen. A transmission from the Scythery warlord's fleet appeared on every screen. The humans have doomed us all. If the Council is too weak to act, we will cleanse the galaxy ourselves. In the black void of space, hundreds of Scythery warships broke formation and powered their weapons. Velvar's heart sank. The war had come anyway. But it was no longer humanity that threatened the galaxy. It was the old world refusing to die. The first battle of the new age. General Rains immediately barked orders. Activate the defense grid. Scramble our fleet. Dr. Carter remained eerily calm as he turned toward the TSS Titan. Let's show them what the future really looks like. Above Earth, the first Singularity-class warship vanished, not through FTL, not through conventional physics, but through a controlled tear in spacetime itself. For the first time in history, an unstoppable force met an immovable past. And the future of the galaxy would be decided in the battle to come. The Scythery fleet surged forward, weapons primed to obliterate Earth. Thousands of warships, battle-hardened across centuries of conquest, moved with brutal precision. They had ruled through war for millennia. Now, they sought to crush humanity before its rise could be completed. But they were not facing a conventional enemy. The TSS Titan did not engage like a warship. It did not move, it shifted. In one instant, it was in orbit. The next, it flickered into existence inside the heart of the Scythery Armada. A black tear in reality opened as its singularity core pulsed, and a Scythery battleship was simply gone, swallowed into an artificial rift. Another ship fired a full spread of torpedoes, only for them to bend, twist, and slam into their own fleet as gravity itself betrayed them. In minutes, the battlefield was unrecognizable. The Scythery fleet, once an unstoppable force, was being erased from existence. The death of an empire. Velvar watched the impossible unfold from the bridge of the Vorthen. The Scythery warships fired desperately, their weapons useless against an enemy that moved outside their understanding. Spacetime itself bent around the Titan, turning reality into a weapon against its attackers. Velvar turned to his officers. Get me the Scythery warlord. Now. The screen flickered. The warlord appeared, his once-proud armor scorched, his command deck in flames. His ships were falling, breaking apart as if the laws of the universe had abandoned them. His eyes burned with rage. You think this is victory? He snarled. You are fools. You've created something you cannot control. The moment you use it for war, it will consume you just as it consumes us. Carter's voice cut through the transmission like a blade. You never understood, did you? He leaned in. This isn't war. This is the end of war. The Scythery warlord's mouth opened, to curse, to scream, but he never got the chance. The TSS Titan pulsed one last time. And the entire Scythery fleet vanished. The birth of the new era. Silence fell over the battlefield. The Scythery, the oldest warlords of the galaxy, were gone, not conquered. Not defeated. Simply, erased from history. The Galactic Council had spent eons ruling with fear. Now, they feared humanity. The final decision. Back aboard the Vorthen, Velvar exhaled slowly. His officers stared at him, waiting for his order. Is this our end? One of them whispered. Velvar shook his head. No, he said. This is our beginning. He opened a direct channel to Earth. Humanity, he said carefully. What happens now? Dr. Carter smiled. Not with arrogance, not with malice, but with something the galaxy had never seen before. Hope. Now, he said. Now, we build a galaxy where no one has to fear their leaders. Where knowledge is shared, not hoarded. Where no species will ever be held back. He stepped forward, voice steady. No more rulers. No more empires. From this day forward, we move together, or not at all. The day that changed everything. Across the galaxy, civilizations watched. Some trembled at the death of the old ways. Some cheered at the dawn of something new. But all understood. This was the moment the universe changed forever. The Galactic Council was no more. In its place, something new had begun. A new era. A new order. And at its heart, standing unbowed beneath the stars, was Earth.